There are two of the most common formats of resumes are chronological and functional. There are different types to select from, but these are the most popular. Chronological is the most common, and it lists your work in history, reverse order, chronological order from you would put your most recent and then go back. Typically 10 years is what you would include on that. It is ideal for those with a solid work history and for people that are following the same career path. The functional resume focuses more on your skills and abilities, and it is more ideal for people who are changing careers or have gaps in their employment history. If you've been out of the workforce for 10 years, you might want to use a functional resume because it also, you don't have to list dates. So it's not going to show that you're been unemployed for 10 years. It just lists your abilities and what you have done in the past. And also, if you're wanting to change careers, if you're doing something that you haven't done for the last 10 years, it would also highlight that. You can put those abilities and the skills in rather than, the dates standing out. Okay, Becca. And here's an example of both of those. And we tried to highlight them. I know they're a little bit difficult to see, but the first one that's highlighted here, you can see the dates are on there after the job. And then over on the second one, it's more of a skills and abilities. So you list your major skill first and, highlight what you did. So it doesn't stand out that the dates aren't on there. And visual appeal. The font size and style easy to read. You want to use at least a 12-point font and not a real fancy script that is hard for someone to decipher. Section headings and bullets are consistent, so you want to leave the same amount of spacing in between each section, and bullet points are consistent. So if you put a bullet point on the task that you did, make sure you do that on every job that you list. Text is bolded, underlined, or italicized where necessary to ensure specific items stand out. So you might want to italicize, the company that you worked for or the job that you were assigned to, but just make sure you do that on every listing that you put. Also, you want to try to keep your resume to one page if possible. Employers are busy. So if you have a 3-page resume, it might get lost. They might have a stack of papers on their desk and it's just kind of hectic, for them sometimes. So one page that's very neat and consistent kind of stands out to them and it's easier for them to glimpse over. And usually they only spend a minute or two just looking at a resume. And if it doesn't seem appealing to them in that first couple seconds, they'll just toss it. So make sure it's printed on clean white paper, nothing fancy. And organization and layout. Do not use colorful or overly complicated designs or templates. There are all kinds of templates out there that you can use. Some include a picture. You just don't want it to be too busy or look too crowded. Just simple and precise is the best way to go. Use bullet points, not full sentences. You just want to tag on there what is important. You just list it. They want to just see what they're looking for and not have um, your whole life story in there, just what you did. Be consistent with spacing and bullet points and color. You don't want the rainbow on your resume. Just use typically blue or black, something easy to read. And yellow, that's a font color that's hard to see, so you don't want to use anything like that on your resume. At the top, you will list your contact information. So your first and last name, personal email. You don't want to use an email that you had at a previous job or a current job if you're employed now and you're looking for a different career. they typically deactivate those emails whenever you're not there anymore. And if it's a company email, they can, have access to what you have. So you don't want them to know that you're shopping for a job necessarily. Your phone number and address is not necessary. We used to put addresses on our resumes, but now an employer will contact you, email, phone number. They're not going to mail you something to your house, and you don't want them to determine if you are fit for the job, depending on where you live. If you're applying for the job, you know where it's at and you're going to get there. So you don't want to be chosen, last over someone else who lives 5 minutes down the street. So, and now we will go to Becca.
All right. And then Amanda, she actually mentioned that someone's having a hard time seeing the slides with the split screen. I'm going to be completely honest with you and admit that I don't know how to not show it split screen. So I am so sorry. If you would like us to email you this PowerPoint after we're done, make sure you stay at the end and we can actually email you this exact PowerPoint. So I'm so sorry that I am not a Zoom genius yet. So I'm going to try to talk through each and every one of these points. If you have any clarification issues, we can definitely talk through them at the end. And I want to make sure you guys get this information in its completion. So I apologize for my Zoom skills, but I'm going to start on a section about education. So when it comes to your resume, like Brandy said, most of the people that are going to be interacting with your resume, they're super busy, right? I think the average time that a hiring manager looks at a resume now is like anywhere from 6 to 7 seconds, right? That is so quick. They're just scanning it, they're skimming it, and then they're on to the next one. So you want to answer questions for them, right? So when it comes to a job position that you're applying for, and a requirement, for example, is a high school diploma. You want to answer that question on your resume and state that you have your high school diploma, right? You want to not make them ask you that question. So you want to make sure that you list any degrees, any certificates that you've obtained. You want to make sure that you include the school name, the city, and the state. So again, this answers the question, where was this university? Where was this college? Where did you get this certification? You want to just make sure that you provide clarification that, yes, I actually got this degree. I didn't make up this university. You want to just ensure your employer that, yes, they actually got this degree or certificate. So another tip that I always want to make sure people are aware of, like how we always included our address on a resume and we always included our graduation year. Now, what we're seeing is that employers, obviously, they can't blatantly discriminate against you because of your age, right? They're not allowed legally to say, oh, we're not going to interview them or offer them this job because of their age. Illegal, right? But what they do is they find loopholes. If you list your graduation year, especially your high school graduation year, what they'll do typically is they will calculate, they're probably 17, 18 years old when they graduate high school. So they'll subtract that from your graduation year, find your birth year, and now they know how old you are. I advise people, even if they've just recently graduated college, don't include the year on your education, right? They just need to know that you got that degree, you got that certificate, and that's all the information they need. They don't give them more information so they could potentially discriminate against you, and just give yourself a better chance of getting that interview. So used to, you had to include the year. Now we're seeing kind of the trend. Don't include that year. Just make sure you list the relevant education that you have so your employer can see that. So then experience, so the experience section on your resume, if you don't have anything to put under education, if you're like, I never graduated high school, I never got my GED, that is okay. You really just want to be intentional with an experience section then, right? You want to highlight, this is the experience I have, these are the skills that I've developed. And so again, you want to make your hiring manager's job easier for them, do their job for them. And so you want to list your title, the company name where you were employed, the address, so you specify where that employer is located, and then the dates of your employment. Again, this verifies, yes, this is a real employer. Yes, I was here from these dates. And you really want to emphasize the skills and accomplishments that you already have that are relevant to the position that you're applying for. So like Brandy said, with the different formats of resumes, maybe you've been in healthcare your entire life. Maybe all of a sudden you can't physically stay in that field, or mentally you're drained. You're like, I don't want anything to do with healthcare ever again. And now you're looking towards customer service. And you're like, my resume, I don't have any experience. I don't really have a lot of relevant skills. Find skills that overlap with your previous experience and what they're looking for. So if you've been in healthcare, you've probably learned how to deal with customer service, right? You've dealt with difficult people. You've dealt with a lot of people at once. You've had to develop time management skills, probably a lot of documentation skills. So find skills that they might not be the exact same as what they have listed, but they're probably relevant. So just kind of look through a lens of how it might be a different field, but it still might be relevant to an employer. And I always tell people, work smarter, not harder, right? Do not give yourself a migraine when it comes to your resume. And when you're trying to list all of your skills, all the duties you've done. A lot of companies nowadays are using screening technology for their resumes, for their applications. Most of the time you have to consent for them when you apply for a job. But what this system does is it compares your resume and all the things listed to their job posting, and it shows a percentage of how well your resume matches that posting. So if it's like a 20% match, chances are they're not going to call you. So what I tell people to do is you find wording in the original job posting that is relevant to you. You have those skills and you use their wording, right? It's not, not plagiarism. You're not doing anything shady, but you are using their exact wordage and their phrasing. So that way, when it's gone through that technology, there's a better match of your resume to those skills that they're looking for. So it gets you one step further. You get past that technology and you get to talk to a real person, and that's getting your foot in the door. So definitely use their phrasing, their wording for that job posting in your tailored resume for that application. And then also, I always just tell people, use powerful action verbs in the correct tense. What I mean by that, if you're listing your current employment, make sure that it's present tense, right? You manage a caseload of this many instead of I managed, right? You want to use present verbs and past tense. So whatever is applicable, just make sure you iron that out. And then you really want to limit the usage of company acronyms and jargon. So what I mean by that, for example, if I say CRM, Brandy knows what I'm talking about because she's in Vantage, but anybody else would not understand what that database even is, what that information is used for. So when I would list that on a resume, I would need to specify what that database system is. Not use that acronym, not use jargon that is only company specific. You want to be very specific, right, in describing so anybody outside of your current company can understand what you're even talking about. So, and then another kind of work smarter, not harder tip that I tell people, use onet.com. So this is ONET, onet.com. And you can search any job title and it pre-populates like average job duties, descriptions. And you're like, I never thought of that. I actually do that duty all the time. I just never would have worded it that way. Use those examples because it words it so professionally and so eloquently in a way that you're like, it would have taken me 2 months to think of that wording. Work smarter, not harder. Use your resources. It's a free website. Great tool to use when you're drafting your resume, and they've got great wording. So definitely use onet.com. So then your career objective or summary. So this is typically at the top of your resume. This might be the first thing that is right under your name. And I always tell people, save this for last, because when you're done working out all the other sections of your resume, then you can kind of summarize it, right? You know, like really what you're trying to highlight. So that way you can kind of convey it there at the top in your objective or your summary. And so what even is this? This is just a phrase or a sentence that highlights your intentions and your accomplishments. It really just like straight out the gate lets employers know who you are and where you're trying to go, right? You want to start with a really strong trait that employers are looking for. So you can describe yourself as reliable, punctual, whatever strong trait that you're like, that describes me really well. You want to start off really strong so it catches the employer's eye and they're like, okay, I'm getting a good impression. They'll read the rest of your resume. Again, work smarter, not harder. Do not reinvent the wheel. Go to Indeed.com and they have some sample resume objectives that you can kind of add to, take away, kind of tailor it to yourself. And you're like, okay, that describes me really well. And I would have never thought of that wording. So just use your resources and kind of play around with the best way to kind of summarize yourself. So that way, right at the top, right, you're on a good note. You got your foot in the door and they're like, okay, I want to read more. So that career objective or summary at the top is important, and it kind of just wants to bring everything together. And then just final touches. You want to make sure that you check for spelling or grammar errors, because like I said, in that 6 to 7 seconds that a hiring manager is looking at your resume, their eyes are somehow going to skim to that one misspelling that you had on your resume, and then they're going to just reach for the next one. So if you're using Microsoft Word, you can right click on a word. If it's showing that it's misspelled, it'll show you the right spelling or even show you synonyms. So definitely just make sure you're using spell check, you're using other tools to make sure you're not misspelling a lot of words so they can get through your resume. You want to make sure that you just check the overall appearance. Like Brandy was talking about earlier, you want to make sure everything's really uniform and similar, spacing, bullets, all that good stuff. You want to make sure when you look at your resume, it's neat and it's just kind of clean. And then you want to make sure that you're not repeating yourself over and over. You might be the most hardworking and dedicated person alive, but if you use the words hardworking 6 times in your resume, they're going to be like, this person didn't know any other synonyms, did they? Right? And they're going to be like, okay, they didn't really try. So make sure you're not repeating yourself over and over. You can emphasize certain skills, certain traits, certain experiences, but you do not want to be repetitive. You want to be precise, right? You don't want to overshare. When you have a 2 to 3 page resume, they're not reading the whole thing, right? Do their job for them. Make it short, make it to the point, make it precise. Just give yourself the best chance of getting that interview. And so I do want to recognize the resources that we use, and Purdue University has an incredible online writing lab that has great resources. And then OhioMeansJobs.com is also a free website that is an incredible resource when it comes to looking for job postings, looking for how to tailor your resume. So again, use your resources. And then really quickly, I know we got through that information pretty efficiently. I did want to just give you guys an opportunity to have just a really quick overview about the program that we offer through Vantage. I mentioned earlier, it's called the Senior Community Service Employment Program. We shorten it to CSEP. So if you see that SCSEP, that's what we're just shortening to. What this program is, it's a paid job training program for those that are 55 and older and that are unemployed and that are trying to get back into the workforce. It pays the state minimum wage. So I'm talking to people in both Ohio and Indiana. So like I said earlier, we cover counties in both of these states. It pays the state minimum wage, and it's 20 to 25 hours a week. So part-time hours. It always kind of fluctuates based on our funding and what we have available, but it's always a minimum of 20 hours a week. We try to place you with a training site that meets your individual employment goals. We try to, give you the relevant training, the opportunities, the support, and the services to really work your way back into employment. So if you're like, you know, Becca, we've had a lot of frustration with this resume. Like, I've applied for a million jobs. I don't have this experience. I don't have the recent experience or the skills or the confidence I need. CSEP might be a perfect opportunity for you guys, right? It gives you a little part-time experience. It gives you relevant and recent experience to put on a resume to give to an employer. So if you have any specific questions and you want to stay a little longer, and we can answer any personal questions you might have about eligibility or how this might be a good fit for you, we're going to end the live in just a second. But that way we can kind of be more one-on-one and give you guys some answers. And even if you have any questions about the resume information, we want to answer those before you guys want to sign off. And then this is just contact information for you guys to have if you have any follow-up questions, or if you're like, hey, I really want to apply. Brandy is in the Hillsborough office, and this is her phone number and her email, or you can call the main Akron office, or even apply online on our website. So there's a lot of options for you guys. If you're like, you know, I don't want to ask right now, I want to do some research and then come back. CSEP might be a perfect opportunity if you're in Ohio or Indiana and any of those counties that we cover. We want to just make sure that you're aware of this program that might be able to serve you and help you get back into employment. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. If everyone got that contact information. So if you guys have any specific questions, Amanda, if you want to go ahead and end the live, we can answer any specific questions. And then Casey, I see that you want to have this PowerPoint emailed to you. Do you mind sending me your email address before you hop off? And I can send this directly to you. And anybody else who you want this PowerPoint email directly to you, just shoot me your email and I will make sure that you get it.